Chris, where's the matter at the moment?
So there's an ongoing investigation at the moment. The AFL haven't finalised that investigation, so we won't find out any more tonight, and I imagine that this will be addressed finally tomorrow.
What does your Ravo look like? Was it kind of entailed from the club this afternoon? Yeah.
What was that, sorry?
What's it entailed from your end, from the club, yours and Willie's end?
So the AFL have met with both Willie and myself today. They've asked a number of questions of him. Understandably, I'm not in a position to go into the specifics around that on the basis that the AFL's investigation is ongoing, but a couple of hours of talking to the AFL this afternoon.
What's changed since Monday, CD, from a sort of punishable or sanctionable point of view?
Well, I think probably more of a conversation for the AFL, but I think in fairness, they're dealing with some things that they weren't aware of contextually, that they're now considering in conjunction with the matter from the weekend.
How's Willie doing?
Willie's obviously out training right now. It hasn't been an easy period of time for him, but he knows that he needed to front up today and answer those questions and do whatever he can to try and move the situation forward.
How do you strike that balance between sanctioning or letting him know you're disappointed, but also supporting your play?
Well, I guess in these situations it's interesting because a sports person's natural instinct is to run towards the person and support them. The opposite position about the way that the Liberal Party are moving away from everything in regard to their the election. But look, and as I say, the club's natural reaction is to move towards Willie and try and provide the right support to him in a moment where he clearly needs some support, but also acknowledging the fact that Willie made a pretty significant error after the game on the weekend in sending the text to the Bulldogs player about Bailey Dale.
Is that where a line is that I guess crossing a line? Because I know we all know that stuff gets said on the field, there's the threshold on that, but from a football club perspective, is maybe the line crossed when it is after a game, after the heat of the moment, a day after where there's more, I guess, emotions have settled, you'd hope.
Yeah, I think that's fair to suggest that after the game is a more significant issue than things that are said during the game. I think that anyone who has played sport at a professional level would understand that there are things that are said during a game, which doesn't make them right, but certainly in this situation it's clear that Willie overstepped the line after the game with the text that was sent.
Does Willie have an issue at the moment with maybe controlling his emotions after games? We saw the Hawthorn, this post about Hawthorn, we saw the message then. Is that an issue for him at the moment?
I think the challenge that has happened over the last 24 hours specifically is a whole host of people across the industry talking about Willie Rioli without having an understanding of the cultural significance to Willie of different things that happen. And I've actually found that quite confronting over the last little bit, seeing a whole heap of people who I don't think have the necessary depth of understanding of what Willie goes through regularly, having their own judgments before understanding maybe some of the things that sit beneath what Willie deals with. Now, this is not in any way to suggest that the text message after the game should not be addressed by the AFL, and in fairness has been addressed. The people involved, the Bulldogs, Bailey Dale specifically, have moved through this incident and, as I understand it, are willing to move forward. And I think that's important, but as I say, I absolutely want to reiterate the fact that people should spend some time educating themselves on maybe the things that sit behind some of the things that Willie deals with.
When you say contextually the AFL's been made aware of things, I know you can't go into full detail, but are you talking about the cultural issues and that thing that he has to deal with, or are you talking more about what was possibly said to him on the field?
Look, I'm not going to go into specifics, but all I will say is that there are things that hurt Willie that are said from time to time, which people don't understand the context for him. Willie deals with a whole heap of stuff that I'm 100% convinced that you and I don't have to deal with, and that is an ongoing issue that Willie has to deal with, and he clearly has to deal with better at various points in time, but that doesn't dismiss the fact that these things are constantly happening to him.
At this stage, Chris, do you see him playing this weekend? And if not, would that decision likely come from the AFL, or could that come from Willie?
Look, well, yeah, it could definitely come from Willie. I mean, you know, with what he's gone through in the last 24 hours, again, not taking away from the fact that we're dealing with a real issue here. I think it's fair that he will see how he goes after training. We'll work with him. We'll continue to talk to the AFL. In fairness, I've only just come off of those discussions, which is part of the reason why I'm an hour late, and I apologise for that. But this is something that's ongoing right now that I think, you know, should be finalised tomorrow. Obviously, from a team announcement perspective, it needs to, but there's still a little bit to work through.
Are you prepared to take it out of his hands and say, you know, really in the interest of your welfare, you know, it might be best if you sit out this week,
Yeah,
given, you know, Showdown as well as such a emotional, you know, heated and emotional.
Yeah, look, that will obviously definitely be a consideration, but again, I would imagine that it's tough just making blanket decisions without knowing the individuals as part of it. You know, I've seen plenty of people have opinions on that, and I respect those. I guess the only difference is that maybe they don't know Willie, they don't know the entire context of the situation, and it's something that the people here on this club actually do, and you know, we are continuing to try and support him as much as we can. If that means pulling him out of the game, then we'll do that. You know, as I say, there's an ongoing investigation, and so the AFL may have a hand in that as well.
Did you speak to Willie after the Geelong game last year, following, I guess, that incident then?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Were you disappointed that, I guess, there was another allegation, I guess, of an incident in the Essendon game? Given you counselled him before on those that kind of language,
Yeah.
kind of maybe, let's say, threat on the field.
Yeah. Look, it's been an interesting period of time because the incident that happened on the weekend, as serious as it was, we found out through the media article, I think on the Herald Sun. The Essendon situation last night evolved. Clearly, we had no visibility of that. In both situations, the Essendon Footy Club, as I understand it, were willing to move through it without any conversation with us. The Bulldogs the same, and certainly my conversation with Geelong back a year ago was far more about them letting me know the context of what was said, but also with a willingness of me to have the conversation with Willie, make sure that he was aware of how the person reacted to that, but also then to take it forward and leave it for us to actually deal with.
Given you knew that happened in the Geelong game and then it's happened, albeit in a different form, could you have taken the step to protect Willie almost from himself and said, we're just going to give you some time because now these other allegations have emerged and the on-field, off-field is being conflated into one, and it's almost as if he's now being hung out to dry in a sense?
Not in a sense. He has, the last 24 hours, I think the pylon has been over the top. Now, that's not to suggest in any way that the issue is not real, but what we're dealing with here, the text message after a game and what is said during the game, albeit they are two separate things. I understand why in this moment we're looking at these things as a pattern of behaviour, but if we were to sanction every threat of violence on the field, I think the AFL are going to have their hands full. Now, that's not to say it's right, but I think we just need to take a little bit of a step back here and think about what the specific question that you're asking about, whether we could have done any more after the Geelong incident, whether that's something that the AFL are willing to take on, and maybe they are.
more could you do? Could you have done more after this latest incident and almost protecting from yourself? Had you stood him down, or had you said, mate, we're just going to look after you for a bit, we probably wouldn't be in this situation now. I get it's a hypothetical.
So, but when are you talking about? The incident happened on Saturday.
Yeah.
And we
Well,
found
you made
out
aware on Monday.
on Monday. What are we going to? We're going to step him down.
I'm just posing it.
So again, I think
Well, not
the
standing
people.
down for his betterment, not standing as a punishment, but as a hey,
Yeah.
this is now, and obviously he had that thing in Hawthorn.
So again, Braden, what I would say there is you're making an assessment on what you think is best for Willie right
I'm asking
now.
you the question. I'm asking you the
So,
question.
so let me answer it. I don't believe that sending Willie away from the club is the way to deal with this issue. And I've made that very clear at the start. We are putting our arms around Willie. He has got an issue to deal with here, but we are not going to kick him out of our club and stand him down for any period of time that would suggest that he can't be around teammates, people who are supportive, for him to sit at home and continue to read the rubbish that he gets constantly on social media.
Do you think we would be almost in this situation now where the stuff has come out if there was maybe some form of censure after the text message? So on Monday, the AFL, even $1,000 fine or something like that, do you think then we'd see, the Geelong incident or the Essendon incident surface up, if that had happened?
Oh, look, I don't really know the answer to that question. I think the AFL did what they thought was right at the time. In fairness to the AFL, what they did was support the people involved at the Bulldogs and at Port Adelaide, and supported the clubs in being able to deal with that issue in a way that they both thought was appropriate at the time.
Are you concerned? Is there concerns for Willie's long-term welfare, long-term future in the game at the moment?
I think that's a fair question to ask, given what has happened to people in the past. Look, I don't know. I'm dealing with an issue right now where I really want to lower my eyes and support Willie as much as I possibly can. I mean, he's out there training at the moment. He answered the questions that he could today in a way which I am proud of him for. But what happens outside of today, I don't really know, to be honest. And what I do know is that the club will continue to support him in an appropriate fashion, albeit we certainly don't condone text messages being sent after a game.
Chris, do you think it's right for the...
So I was just going to say, Caroline's reported that there are fears on Willie's sort of long-term playing future. Is that talk sort of premature?
Caroline is pretty well connected around the place, so maybe someone has said that to her. I'm specifically, as I say, dealing with myself and Willie right now. Whatever happens, what I do know is the best way to prolong Willie's career is to support him right now.
Do you think it's right for the AFL to open an investigation somewhat retrospectively, given it sounds like Port Adelaide and the Bulldogs came to some sort of resolution earlier in the week?
Well, I'm not sure that they're opening up based on that. I think that the new information for the AFL is the allegation from the Geelong game. And look, whether I think it's fair or not is probably not going to make any difference. It is what it is. It's what we're dealing with at the moment.
So is the investigation not just into the one specific incident that we saw with the Bulldogs over the weekend, but more the three incidents as a whole?
Well, that's the way that it has been framed to me today. Yes.
So is the conduct unbecoming? Is that what they're looking at?
That's a conversation for the AFL.
Is the AFL treading in dangerous ground if they were to consider suspending him?
I think the AFL, and maybe dangerous ground is not the... If the AFL want to start to talk about the things that are said on the field, which are contextually around threats of violence, then I think that, as I say, they're going to have more work to do.
Other than the AFL today said they would, I don't know if the word was annoyed that they hadn't been told about stuff like that, and they want to be told about more incidents rather than clubs keeping it between them, given that you and Geelong thought it was resolved between the two. Is that just going to, as you say, add to more workload for the AFL having to deal with way more incidents?
Yeah, I probably think so. Yeah, I mean there are things that happen that that football managers would talk about post game regularly in order to make sure that we keep our players out of strife. This is not the first time where players have spoken to each other in a way on field that has led to the AFL. Geez, I thought I was going okay. You're just dropping out, are you?
It's gracious me.
Tell you what, the answer's no.
Good call.
Sorry, I've lost my train of thought there.
What was the question?
So the AFL today said that they'd like to be notified about more incidents. Not the clubs keep it between themselves. So is that a dangerous part?
Oh, look, they can have that view, definitely, and the way that the clubs conduct themselves may well have to change on that basis.
How much
How
much of a distraction is this for the group, and how much thought and time has it taken up of the leadership group to be involved?
Look, I don't think it's taken up a lot of my time, but I guess the job here is to try and insulate the rest of the group from having to necessarily deal with the specifics of the matter, and we'll have no excuse once the game comes.
Have you offered Zach the biggest contract in AFL history?
We have offered who?
Zach Butters, the biggest contract in AFL history?
I think that Zach, whenever the offer gets made, and I do note that most people have already made their minds up as to where Zach will play after 2026. Zach will be well paid. He's a very good player in the competition.
Port Adelaide?
Well, I hope so, definitely.